My husband stopped touching me years ago, and I blamed myself. Then I found the hotel receipts in his car with my little sister's name on them. They'd been together for 7 years, since she was my maid of honor at our wedding. But let me back up, because the worst betrayals don't announce themselves with dramatic revelations. They creep in slowly, changing you by degrees until you wake up one day and don't recognize your own life. Before we go any further, if you're finding this story compelling, I'd really appreciate if you could hit that like button, drop a comment letting me know where you're tuning in from, and subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on. Your support helps me keep bringing you these stories. My name is Naomi Clark. I'm 35 years old, and I run an event planning company called Graceful Gatherings here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I plan weddings mostly, though I also do corporate events, milestone birthdays, anniversary parties. I'm good at what I do, creating beautiful moments for other people, crafting celebrations that look perfect from the outside. The irony of that isn't lost on me now. I met my husband, Marcus Clark, when I was 25. He was 28, a rising sales director at a pharmaceutical company, ambitious and charming in that easy way some men have. We met at a friend's barbecue, one of those lazy summer afternoons where everyone drinks too much sangria and plays cornhole in the backyard. Marcus had this smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. When he looked at me, really looked at me, I felt seen in a way I'd never experienced before. We talked for hours that day, sitting on the back porch, while fireflies started to appear in the twilight. He told me about growing up in Winston-Salem, about losing his mother to cancer when he was 16, about his dreams of building something meaningful with his career. I told him about my event planning business, still just a side hustle at that point while I worked full-time at a hotel coordinating conferences. I told him about my family, my parents who still lived in the same house in South Charlotte where I'd grown up, my younger sister Simone who was in her junior year at UNC Chapel Hill, studying communications. "You light up when you talk about your work," Marcus said. "That's rare. Most people just talk about their jobs. You talk about creating memories." I was smitten. We dated for 2 years before he proposed. It was at the Daniel Stowe Botanical Garden during the orchid show, surrounded by thousands of blooms in every color imaginable. He got down on one knee right there in the tropical dome, and I said yes before he even finished asking. Planning my own wedding should have been a dream. I was an event planner after all. But somehow, planning my own celebration felt different, weighted with meaning that other people's weddings didn't carry. Every choice felt crucial, every detail loaded with symbolism. I asked Simone to be my maid of honor. She was 21 then, about to graduate from college, beautiful and vibrant in that way young women are when the world still feels full of infinite possibilities. She cried when I asked her, threw her arms around me and said, "I can't believe my big sister is getting married. You and Marcus are perfect together." The wedding was beautiful. Of course it was. I'd planned every detail myself. It was at the Duke Mansion, a historic estate with manicured gardens and elegant rooms. We had a string quartet for the ceremony, a jazz band for the reception. The flowers were peonies and garden roses in shades of blush and cream. The cake was 4 tiers of champagne cake with raspberry filling. In the photos, we looked deliriously happy. Marcus in his navy suit, me in my lace gown with a cathedral train. Simone in her dusty rose bridesmaid dress, standing beside me, holding my bouquet, beaming at the camera. Looking at those photos now, I search for signs. Was there a look between them I missed? A moment of eye contact that lasted too long? But I don't see anything. They're just my husband and my sister, celebrating my wedding day. The wedding was 7 years ago, which means if what I suspect is true, they started their affair at my wedding. Maybe even before. The thought makes me physically sick. The first few years of our marriage were good. Not perfect, but good. Marcus's career was taking off, his sales numbers consistently at the top of his division. My event planning business was growing too. I'd quit my hotel job and was working full-time for myself, building a reputation for elegant, detail-oriented events. We bought a house in Dilworth, a charming neighborhood with tree-lined streets and historic homes. Ours was a 1920s bungalow with original hardwood floors, a stone fireplace, and a backyard perfect for entertaining. We hosted dinner parties, had friends over for game nights, spent Sunday mornings reading the paper on our front porch. We talked about having kids. Not right away, but someday. When the business was more stable, when Marcus's career had reached the level he was aiming for, when we'd had a few more years to just be us. Looking back, I realized the someday kept getting pushed further and further into the future. The distance between us started so gradually, I didn't notice it at first. Marcus began working longer hours, traveling more for sales conferences and client meetings. When he was home, he was tired, stressed, always checking his phone. Our sex life, which had been frequent and satisfying in the beginning, started to dwindle. Once a week became twice a month, became once a month, became almost never. I tried everything. I bought lingerie, planned romantic dinners, suggested weekend getaways. Sometimes Marcus would respond, would make an effort, and we'd have a good night together. But more often, he'd say he was exhausted, that he had an early morning meeting, that he just needed to get some sleep. "I'm sorry, babe," he'd say, kissing my forehead like I was a child. "It's just work stress."
It's not you, but it felt like me.
It felt like I wasn't attractive enough, sexy enough, interesting enough to hold my husband's attention. I started working out more, changed my hair, bought new clothes. Nothing seemed to make a difference. I talked to my friends about it, carefully, not wanting to reveal too much. They offered the usual platitudes. All couples go through dry spells. Work stress is real. Men hit a point where their sex drive decreases.
Give it time.
I talked to Simone about it too. She'd moved to Charlotte after college and was working in marketing for a local tech startup. We had lunch every few weeks, sister time that I cherished. "Maybe you should see a therapist together," Simone suggested over salads at our favorite cafe. Or maybe just give him space. Men can be weird about pressure to perform. The irony of taking relationship advice from the woman who is sleeping with my husband is almost funny. Almost. The years passed. 3, 4, 5. Marcus and I settled into a routine that looked like marriage from the outside. We attended work functions together, smiled for photos at friends' weddings, spent holidays with our families. My parents adored Marcus, thought he was the perfect son-in-law. My dad would clap him on the back and talk about golf. My mom would ask when we were going to make her a grandmother. But in private, in our home, we were like polite roommates. We shared space, but not intimacy. We coordinated schedules, but didn't really talk. We slept in the same bed, but on opposite sides, a canyon of space between us. I threw myself into work. Graceful Gatherings was thriving. I had a team of 3 employees, a wait list of clients, features in local wedding magazines. I was known for making dreams come true, for creating perfect days for brides who trusted me with their most important moments. I planned engagement parties and bridal showers, rehearsal dinners and receptions. I coordinated every detail, from the first dance song to the last shuttle departure time. I made other women's love stories beautiful. And I went home to a marriage that was slowly dying of neglect. 6 months ago, things got worse. Marcus started going to the gym at odd hours, 5 in the morning or 9 at night. He bought new clothes, started wearing cologne I didn't recognize. He was on his phone constantly, texting and smiling at the screen in a way he never smiled at me. Classic signs of an affair, I know. But I didn't let myself think it. I couldn't. Because thinking it meant acknowledging that my marriage was a failure, that the perfect life I'd built was a facade, that I'd wasted 7 years on someone who didn't love me anymore. Instead, I blamed myself more. I worked harder at being the perfect wife. I kept the house immaculate, cooked his favorite meals, never complained when he came home late or was too tired to talk. I made myself smaller and smaller, trying to be whatever he needed me to be. It didn't work. Then, 3 weeks ago, Marcus's car wouldn't start. Dead battery, probably from leaving the interior light on. It was a Saturday morning, and he needed to get to a client lunch across town. "Take my car," I said. "I'm working from home today anyway." He hesitated, just for a second, then nodded. "Thanks, babe. I'll get the battery jumped when I get back." After he left, I realized I needed to run to the office supply store for some materials for an event I was planning that weekend. Marcus's car keys were still on the counter. The battery was dead, but I could jump it myself. I'd done it before. I went out to his car, a black Lexus sedan that he kept impeccably clean. The interior was spotless as always. Marcus was particular about his car, said it was a professional tool, had to make the right impression on clients. I opened the glove compartment, looking for the owner's manual to confirm the location of the Jumpstart terminals. The manual was there along with the usual things: registration, insurance cards, a tire pressure gauge, and underneath it all, a small stack of folded papers. I almost didn't look at them. They were probably just old insurance documents or maintenance records. But something made me pull them out, unfold them, read what they said. Hotel receipts. 5 of them from different hotels in Charlotte. The Ritz-Carlton Uptown, the Dunhill, the Ivy's Hotel. Nice places, the kind you take someone special. Each receipt was for a room and dinner for 2. The charges ranged from $300 to $600 per visit. And on each receipt, in the guest name field, was my sister's name. Simone Clark. I sat in Marcus's car in our driveway, staring at those receipts, and the world tilted on its axis. Simone Clark. Not Simone Barrett, her actual last name, but Simone Clark, using Marcus's last name like they were married. My hands started to shake. I looked at the dates. The most recent receipt was from 2 weeks ago. The Ivy's Hotel. Room service charged to the room at 9 p.m., 2 entrees, a bottle of wine, chocolate-covered strawberries. I checked another receipt. 3 months ago. Another from 6 months ago. I pulled out my phone and started searching through my calendar, cross-referencing the dates. Every single receipt corresponded to a night when Marcus had told me he was traveling for work. Conference in Raleigh, he'd said for one. Client dinner running late, for another. Staying overnight at a hotel because I'll be drinking, for a third. He'd been lying. The entire time he'd been lying. And Simone, my sister, my maid of honor, my best friend. I thought about all those lunches we'd had, all the times I'd complained to her about the distance in my marriage, asked her advice about how to reconnect with Marcus. She'd sat across from me, eaten salad, and offered sympathetic advice while she was sleeping with my husband. The betrayal was so massive I couldn't process it. My brain kept trying to find alternative explanations. Maybe Marcus was helping Simone with something, booking hotel rooms for her for some reason. Maybe these receipts were from before we were married and had gotten mixed in with current paperwork. But I knew. Deep down, I knew exactly what this was. I took photos of every receipt with my phone. Then I carefully put them back exactly where I'd found them and closed the glove compartment. I went into the house, canceled my afternoon plans, and sat on the couch staring at nothing. Marcus came home around 4, cheerful and relaxed. Hey babe, he said, kissing my cheek. Thanks for letting me take your car. I'll get mine jumped tomorrow. How was your lunch? I asked, my voice sounding normal to my own ears despite the screaming in my head. Good. Landed a big account, actually. We should celebrate. Sure, I said. That's great. He went upstairs to change, and I sat there, thinking about 7 years of marriage, 7 years of trying to fix something that was broken because my husband was in love with someone else. 7 years of my sister looking me in the eye and lying. That night, Marcus was in a good mood. He suggested we order takeout and watch a movie, something we hadn't done in months. We sat on the couch, eating Thai food, watching some action movie he'd chosen. He even put his arm around me, pulled me close. It felt like a stranger's arm. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the food at him, pull out my phone and shove the receipt photos in his face, demand answers. But I didn't, because I needed to think. I needed to understand the full scope of what was happening before I made any moves. The next day, Sunday, Simone called. Hey sis, she said, bright and cheerful. Wanna grab brunch? There's this new place in Plaza, Midwood, I've been wanting to try. I almost said no. Almost told her I was busy, couldn't make it. But then I thought, why not? Why not sit across from her and watch her lie to my face one more time? Sure, I said. What time? We met at 11 at a trendy restaurant with exposed brick and hanging plants. Simone was already there when I arrived, looking beautiful in a sundress and sandals, her dark hair in beachy waves. She hugged me when I sat down. I feel like I haven't seen you in forever. You've been so busy with wedding season. It's been crazy, I said. But good. We ordered mimosas and avocado toast. We talked about work, about our parents, about a mutual friend who'd just gotten engaged. Normal sister conversation. I watched her carefully, looking for signs of guilt, of discomfort. But she was perfectly at ease, laughing and gossiping and complaining about her boss. "How's Marcus?" she asked casually, taking a sip of her mimosa. The question was like a knife between my ribs. "He's fine," I said. "Busy with work. He landed a big account yesterday, actually." "That's great." Simone smiled. "You guys should celebrate. Do something fun, just the two of you. When's the last time you had a real date night?" The audacity of it took my breath away. Here she was, my sister, the woman who'd been sleeping with my husband for 7 years, suggesting we needed more couple time. "It has been a while," I said carefully. "We're both just so busy." "Make time," Simone said earnestly, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "Marriage takes work, you know? You have to prioritize each other." I looked at her hand on mine, at her concerned face, and I understood something fundamental about my sister. She wasn't sorry. She didn't feel guilty. Because in her mind, what she was doing wasn't wrong. She loved Marcus, and Marcus loved her, and that made it okay. I was just the obstacle, the inconvenient wife who was in the way of their happiness. The realization was clarifying. "You're right," I said, pulling my hand back gently. "We should make more time for each other." After brunch, I went home and did something I should have done years ago. I hired a private investigator. His name was James Watkins, and he came highly recommended by one of my clients who'd used him during her own divorce. James was in his 50s, a former cop with a calm, professional demeanor and a track record of getting results. "I need to know if my husband is having an affair," I told him in his cramped office in South End. "And if so, with who, for how long, and what exactly they've been doing." "Do you have any evidence already?" he asked. I showed him the photos of the hotel receipts. James studied them carefully. "Your sister?" "My sister." He was quiet for a moment. "That's rough." "I'm sorry. I just need to know the truth. All of it." "I can do that. Standard surveillance package. We'll track both of them for 2 weeks, document their movements, get photos, see what patterns emerge. It'll cost about $3,000. I didn't even hesitate. "Do it." James started surveillance immediately. Within 3 days, he had his first report. Marcus and Simone met for lunch at a cafe in South Park on Tuesday. They sat close, held hands across the table, kissed when they left. On Thursday, Marcus left work at 6 and drove straight to Simone's apartment in South End. He didn't leave until after midnight. On Saturday, while I was at a wedding venue doing a site visit, they checked into the Ritz-Carlton. James got photos of them in the lobby, Marcus's hand on the small of Simone's back, Simone laughing at something he said. The photos were like daggers, each one a fresh wound. But they were also confirmation. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining things. This was real. James's final report came 2 weeks later. It was comprehensive and devastating. Marcus and Simone had been seeing each other at least twice a week for the past 3 months, probably longer, but that was as far back as James had been able to document definitively. They went to hotels, to her apartment, to restaurants and neighborhoods where they were unlikely to run into anyone we knew. They texted constantly. James had gotten photos of Marcus's phone screen showing message threads with us that were clearly romantic. "Miss you already. Can't wait to see you tonight. You looked so beautiful yesterday." But the worst part of James's report was the timeline he'd constructed by cross-referencing credit card records, phone records, and witness statements. The affair had been going on for at least 7 years. Maybe longer, but definitively for 7 years. Which meant it had started right around our wedding. I sat in my home office, reading James's report, and I felt something shift inside me. The pain and shock and betrayal were still there, but underneath it was something cold and hard. Anger. Not the hot, explosive kind, but the kind that calcifies into determination. They had stolen 7 years of my life. 7 years where I'd blamed myself, had tried to fix a marriage that was broken because my husband was in love with someone else. 7 years where I'd confided in my sister, trusted her, loved her, while she was stabbing me in the back. And they'd done it so casually, so easily. The hotel rooms, the dinners, the secret apartment visits. They'd built an entire relationship in the shadows of my marriage. I thought about confronting them, about screaming and crying and demanding answers. But what would that accomplish? They'd lie, make excuses, maybe even try to make it my fault somehow.
No.
I didn't want a confrontation. I wanted something more. I wanted them to understand what they'd done. I wanted consequences. I wanted justice. But more than that, I wanted my life back. I called my lawyer, a woman named Angela Davidson who specialized in family law. I'd met her at various events over the years, had always been impressed by her sharp mind and no-nonsense approach. I need to file for divorce, I told her. And I need to do it strategically. Angela listened to my story, reviewed James's report, and nodded slowly. You have more than enough grounds for divorce, she said. Adultery, 7 years of deception. North Carolina is an equitable distribution state, but with this level of fault, you can make a strong case for a favorable settlement. I don't want his money, I said. I make my own money. I want the house because I love it and he's barely there anyway. I want my business protected, which is mine alone. And I want this to be public enough that everyone knows what he did. Angela raised an eyebrow. Public divorces can get messy. Good, I said. Let it get messy. I've been quiet for 7 years. I'm done being quiet. We spent the next week preparing. Angela filed for divorce, served Marcus with papers at his office in front of his colleagues. The petition explicitly cited adultery as grounds and named Simone as the third party. Marcus called me immediately, his voice tight with anger. What the hell, Naomi? You had me served at work? In front of everyone. You're having an affair with my sister, I said calmly. Did you think I'd keep it quiet?
We need to talk about this.
This is between us. We don't need lawyers. It stopped being between us when you started sleeping with Simone. How long, Marcus? How long have you been lying to me? Silence. Since the wedding? I pressed. Since before? Naomi, don't lie to me anymore. I have proof, hotel receipts, surveillance photos, everything. I know exactly what you've been doing, and with who, and for how long. More silence. I'm sorry, he finally said, his voice small. I never meant to hurt you. The thing about that phrase, I never meant to hurt you, is that it's always a lie. He absolutely meant to hurt me, or he didn't care enough about me to consider whether his actions would hurt me, which amounts to the same thing. You're going to sign the divorce papers, I said. You're going to agree to my terms, which are fair. And then you're going to move out of my house and out of my life. What about Simone? He asked, and the way he said her name, with that tenderness he'd never used for me in years, made me want to break something. What about her? Are you going to? I mean, she's your sister. She stopped being my sister when she started fucking my husband. I hung up. Then I called my parents. My mother answered, cheerful and unsuspecting. Naomi, honey, how are you? Mom, I need to tell you something. Can you put me on speaker with Dad? Of course, hold on. I heard rustling, then my father's voice. Hey, sweetheart. What's going on? I took a deep breath. I'm getting divorced. Marcus has been having an affair for 7 years. With Simone. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. What? My mother finally said, her voice barely a whisper. I found hotel receipts. I hired a private investigator. I have proof. They've been together since my wedding, maybe before. And I'm done pretending I don't know. Simone, my father said, sounding lost. Your sister Simone? Yes, Dad. That can't be right. There must be some mistake. There's no mistake. I have photos, Dad. I have surveillance footage. I have 7 years of credit card records for hotel rooms booked in her name. My mother started crying. Soft, broken sobs that made my chest ache. I'm sorry, Mom, I said. I know this is hard to hear. But you needed to know. Where's she? My father demanded. Where's Simone? I don't know. I haven't talked to her since I found out. I'll talk to her, he said, his voice hard in a way I'd rarely heard. I'll get to the bottom of this. After I hung up, I sat in my house. In the living room, Marcus and I had decorated together, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. The truth was out. The secret was exposed. And while what came next would be painful and messy and complicated, at least it would be real. No more pretending. No more trying to fix a marriage that had been broken from the start. No more making myself small to accommodate a man who didn't love me. I was done. My phone buzzed with a text from Simone. Mom called. We need to talk. Please. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I blocked her number. Whatever Simone had to say, I didn't want to hear it. There was no explanation that would make this okay, no apology that would fix what she'd broken. She was dead to me. Marcus moved out the next day, taking only his clothes and personal items. He left everything else, the furniture we'd chosen together, the wedding photos still hanging on the walls, the life we'd built that turned out to be nothing but a beautiful lie. I stood in the empty master bedroom and thought about the 7 years I'd lost, the person I'd become trying to save a marriage that was doomed before it even started. But I also thought about the future, about the woman I was going to become now that I was free, stronger, wiser, unafraid, and ready for whatever came next. The first call came at 6 in the morning, 2 days after I'd told my parents. It was my mother, her voice hoarse from crying. "Naomi, please. We need to talk about this as a family. You, me, your father, and Simone. We can work this out." I was sitting on my back porch with coffee, watching the sun rise over my garden. The irises were blooming, purple and yellow against the green. "There's nothing to work out, Mom. Marcus and Simone had an affair for 7 years. I'm getting divorced. That's not up for discussion. But she's your sister. She's my daughter. We're a family. She stopped being my sister when she slept with my husband on my wedding night." My mother gasped. "You don't know that. You're making assumptions. I have a private investigator's report that documents their affair going back 7 years. Hotel records, surveillance photos, text messages. I'm not making assumptions, Mom. I'm stating facts. Even so, we need to talk. As a family. Please, Naomi. Don't shut us out." I sighed. "I'm not shutting you out. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. Your father wants to talk to you. Hold on." Before I could protest, my dad's voice came on the line. "Naomi, I spoke with Simone, and she says it's not what it looks like. She says you've misunderstood the situation." I laughed, a bitter sound. "Really? Then please, explain to me what 5 hotel receipts with her name on them mean, if not what I think they mean." "She says Marcus was helping her with something. A work project or something. I don't know. She was crying too hard to explain properly." "Dad, are you serious right now? You actually believe that Marcus booked hotel rooms for Simone as a favor? For a work project?" "I don't know what to believe, but I know you're both my daughters, and I can't choose between you." Those words hit me like a physical blow. "You're not choosing between us, Dad. She chose. She chose Marcus over me. She chose to lie to me for 7 years. She chose to destroy my marriage. I'm just dealing with the consequences of her choices. She made a mistake. 7 years isn't a mistake.
7 years is a choice.
A conscious, deliberate choice made over and over again." My father was quiet for a long moment. "What do you want us to do?" "I want you to stop asking me to forgive her. I want you to stop trying to make this a family matter that we can resolve over dinner. This isn't a misunderstanding or a fight over borrowed clothes. This is betrayal of the deepest kind, and I'm not going to pretend it isn't. She's still your sister."
"No, Dad, she's not."
I hung up and turned off my phone. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings, document reviews, and division of assets. Angela was ruthless in her efficiency, filing motions and demanding disclosures. Marcus's lawyer kept trying to negotiate, to find middle ground, but I wasn't interested in compromise. I wanted the house. I wanted my business protected. And I wanted this over. Marcus texted me constantly from a number I hadn't blocked yet. "Please, can we talk face to face? This doesn't have to be so hostile. I made mistakes, but we can work through this. Don't I deserve a chance to explain?" I didn't respond to any of them. What was there to say? What explanation could possibly make 7 years of lying acceptable? Then, on a Tuesday afternoon while I was at a venue meeting with the bride, Simone showed up at my office. My assistant, Claire, a sharp 24-year-old who'd been with me for 2 years, called me immediately. "Naomi, your sister is here. She says she needs to talk to you. I told her you weren't available, but she's insisting." "Tell her to leave," I said. "If she refuses, call the police and have her removed for trespassing." Claire's voice dropped to a whisper. "She's crying in the lobby. It's kind of a scene."
Of course it was.
Simone always knew how to make herself the victim. "I don't care if she's performing a one-woman show. tell her to leave, or I'm calling the police myself. I finished my meeting with the bride, discussed color schemes and timeline logistics, smiled and nodded, and pretended my entire world wasn't imploding. When I got back to the office an hour later, Simone was gone. But she'd left a letter. Claire handed it to me apologetically.
She asked me to give this to you.
I'm sorry, I didn't know what else to do. It's fine. You handled it well. I took the letter to my private office, closed the door, and stared at the envelope for a full 5 minutes before opening it. The letter was written in Simone's familiar looping handwriting, the same handwriting I'd seen on birthday cards and thank you notes and silly messages stuck to my refrigerator over the years. Naomi, I know you don't want to talk to me. I know you probably hate me right now, and I understand why. But please, just read this. Please let me explain. It wasn't supposed to happen. Marcus and I didn't plan it, didn't want it. It just happened. At your rehearsal dinner, we were both a little drunk and we started talking, really talking, and there was this connection. This understanding. I tried to fight it, I swear I did. But I couldn't. I know how this sounds. I know it seems like a betrayal, and maybe it is. But Naomi, I fell in love with him. Not on purpose. Not to hurt you. But genuinely, completely in love. And he loves me too. I've spent 7 years torn apart by this. 7 years of guilt and secret happiness, and wishing things were different. I wanted to tell you so many times, but I couldn't bear to hurt you. You're my sister. I love you. But I also love Marcus. And he loves me in a way he never loved you. I'm sorry, but it's true. What you had with him was comfortable, safe, but it wasn't passion. It wasn't this consuming, can't breathe without you kind of love.
I'm not asking you to understand.
I'm not even asking you to forgive me. I just need you to know that this wasn't malicious. It wasn't calculated. It was two people falling in love against all odds, against all rules. Mom and Dad are devastated. They don't understand. They keep asking me how I could do this, and I don't know how to explain it to them. How do you explain that sometimes love doesn't follow the rules? That sometimes your heart wants what it wants regardless of consequences? I miss you. I miss my sister. I miss our lunches and our conversations, and the way you always knew exactly what to say when I was stressed about work. I miss being able to call you when something good happens or something bad happens. I miss you being part of my life, Marcus, and I want to be together properly now. No more hiding, no more hotel rooms. We want a real relationship, and I know that means you and I can't have a relationship anymore, at least not right now. But maybe someday? When the hurt isn't so fresh. Maybe we can find a way back to being sisters? I love you, Naomi. I always have and I always will. I'm sorry I hurt you.
I'm sorry I lied.
But I'm not sorry I fell in love. Simone. I read the letter twice, then a third time, looking for something that resembled genuine remorse or understanding of what she'd done. But all I found was justification and romanticization and self-pity. She wasn't sorry she'd betrayed me. She was sorry she'd gotten caught. And that line, "He loves me in a way he never loved you," was perhaps the cruelest thing anyone had ever said to me. Not because it might be true, but because she felt entitled to throw it in my face while asking for forgiveness. I picked up my phone and called Angela. "I want to add emotional distress damages to the divorce petition," I said. "Is that possible in North Carolina?" "It's called alienation of affection," Angela said. And yes, North Carolina is one of the few states where you can sue a third party for destroying your marriage. But Naomi, these cases are hard to win, and they're expensive to pursue. I don't care about winning money from Simone. I care about making a public record of what she did. I want her name in court documents. I want people to know. Angela was quiet for a moment. "You're sure?" "Completely." "Then let's do it." We filed an alienation of affection lawsuit against Simone 2 days later. The local legal community was small enough that word spread quickly. My phone started ringing with calls from other event planners, from vendors, from clients past and present. Some were supportive. "I always thought there was something off about your sister," one vendor said. "The way she looked at Marcus at your wedding. I remember thinking it was weird." Others were less kind. "Don't you think you're being vindictive?" a former client asked. "I mean, it takes two people to have an affair. Why are you going after her and not him?" "I'm divorcing him," I pointed out. "That seems like going after him to me. But suing your own sister?" That's harsh. Sleeping with your sister's husband for 7 years is harsh. I'm just holding her accountable. The hardest calls were from mutual friends, people who were close to both me and Simone, who felt caught in the middle. I don't know what to say, my friend Jessica said. I love you both. This is so awful. You don't have to choose sides, I told her. But you should know the truth. Simone had an affair with Marcus starting at my wedding. For 7 years, she lied to me, gave me advice about my marriage while she was sleeping with my husband. That's who she is. God, Naomi. I'm so sorry. But I knew that despite her sympathy, Jessica would probably maintain her friendship with Simone. Because people don't like to take sides, don't like to acknowledge that sometimes one person is clearly wrong and the other is clearly wronged. It's easier to say both sides made mistakes, both sides share blame, both sides need to heal. Except that wasn't true. I hadn't made mistakes. I'd been lied to, betrayed, gaslit for 7 years. And I was done pretending that was somehow equally my fault. 3 weeks after filing the lawsuit, I got a call from my mother. Simone is in the hospital, she said, her voice thick with tears. She tried to hurt herself.
Pills.
If her roommate hadn't come home early, my stomach dropped. Is she okay?
Physically, yes.
They pumped her stomach. But Naomi, she's devastated. The lawsuit, the publicity, everyone knowing what happened. She can't handle it. I felt a complicated mix of emotions. Horror at the thought of Simone trying to kill herself. Anger that she'd made herself the victim again. Guilt that maybe I'd pushed too hard. But underneath it all was a cold certainty. This wasn't my fault. I'm sorry she's hurting, I said carefully. But Mom, I didn't make her have an affair. I didn't make her lie for 7 years. She made those choices. And actions have consequences. She's your sister. She stopped being my sister when she became Marcus's mistress. How can you be so cold? She tried to kill herself, and I'm sorry about that. Genuinely. But it doesn't change what she did. It doesn't make the betrayal go away. And it doesn't mean I have to set myself on fire to keep her warm. My mother was crying now, deep shaking sobs. I don't know you anymore. This isn't the daughter I raised. You're right, I said. The daughter you raised was a doormat who blamed herself when her husband stopped touching her, who made herself smaller and smaller trying to be good enough, who took relationship advice from the woman sleeping with her husband. That daughter is gone. This is who I am now. I hung up and sat in my office, shaking. Simone had tried to kill herself. That was real. That was serious. And despite everything, I didn't want her dead. But I also knew, with the clarity that comes from too much pain, that her suicide attempt was about her inability to face consequences, not about genuine remorse for what she'd done. She was sorry she got caught. Sorry her perfect image was shattered. Sorry people knew the truth. But she wasn't sorry she fell in love with Marcus. She'd said so herself in her letter.
My phone rang.
It was Angela. I heard about your sister, she said. Are you okay? I don't know. Do you want to drop the lawsuit? I thought about it. Really thought about it. About the optics of suing someone who just attempted suicide. About my parents' devastation. About the whispers that would follow me if I pushed forward. No, I said finally. She doesn't get to escape consequences by hurting herself. That's not how this works. Okay, Angela said. But Naomi? Be prepared. This is going to get uglier. She was right. The news about Simone's suicide attempt spread through Charlotte's event planning community like wildfire. Suddenly, I wasn't the wronged wife anymore. I was the vindictive sister who'd driven Simone to try to kill herself. Clients started canceling. Not all of them, but enough to sting. We've decided to go in a different direction, they'd say, or we're not comfortable with the current situation. One bride was more direct. I can't have someone planning my wedding who's suing her own sister. It's too much drama. I wanted to scream. I wanted to explain that I wasn't the one who created the drama, that I was just dealing with the aftermath of other people's choices. But I didn't. I just smiled and said I understood and wished them well. My staff was worried. Claire pulled me aside after a particularly brutal day of cancellations. Naomi, is the business going to be okay? She asked. Because if you need to let me go, I understand. I'm not letting anyone go, I said firmly. We're going to get through this. We have enough loyal clients to weather the storm. But But privately, I wasn't so sure. Graceful gatherings had been built on my reputation for creating beautiful, drama-free events. Now I was the epicenter of the messiest scandal Charlotte's society circles had seen in years. Marcus called me from a new number I hadn't blocked yet. "Naomi, please. You need to drop the lawsuit against Simone. She's fragile right now. She can't handle this." She should have thought about that before she fucked my husband for 7 years. Don't be crude. Crude? You want to talk about crude? How about the text messages the investigator found? Can't wait to taste you again. You make me feel alive. I love the way you... Stop, Marcus said, his voice breaking. Please stop.
Why?
Is the reality of your affair too uncomfortable to hear out loud? You did these things, Marcus. You wrote those messages. You booked those hotel rooms. You lied to me for 7 years. And now you're upset that I'm not being polite about it. I never wanted to hurt you. Then you shouldn't have married me. You should have been honest from the beginning instead of wasting 7 years of my life. I did love you. Maybe not the way you wanted, but I cared about you. You don't get to rewrite history now. You don't get to pretend this was some complicated love triangle where everyone's feelings matter equally. You're a liar and a cheat, and Simone is a backstabber. That's the truth. Simone loves me. I love her. That's real, Naomi. Even if you can't accept it, that's real. Then be together. I don't care. But don't ask me to bless it, don't ask me to understand it, and definitely don't ask me to drop the lawsuit. She destroyed my marriage. She's going to answer for it in court. I hung up and blocked that number too. For weeks after Simone's suicide attempt, my parents showed up at my house unannounced. I was in my garden, pulling weeds and trying to find some peace in the simple act of tending to growing things. When I saw their car pull into my driveway, my first instinct was to go inside and pretend I wasn't home. But I was tired of running, tired of hiding. I met them at the front door, dirt on my knees, gardening gloves still on. "We need to talk," my father said.
Come in.
We sat in my living room, the same living room where Marcus and I had hosted game nights and holiday gatherings. My mother looked older than I remembered, gray showing at her temples, lines around her eyes that hadn't been there a few months ago. "Simone is in therapy," my mother said without preamble. "Intensive outpatient treatment. She's doing better." "That's good," I said, and I meant it. "She wants to apologize to you."
Properly.
"Face to face."
No.
"Naomi." I said no. I don't want her apology. I don't want to see her. I don't want anything from her except for her to stay out of my life. My father leaned forward. "She's your sister. Blood is thicker than..." "Don't." I cut him off. "Don't you dare finish that sentence. Blood means nothing when it's spilled to hurt you." Simone chose Marcus over me. She chose 7 years of lies over honesty. She chose herself over our relationship every single day for 7 years. That's not family. That's betrayal. She made a mistake, my mother said. A terrible mistake, but still a mistake. Can't you find it in your heart to forgive her? "Why should I?" I asked, genuinely curious. "What has she done to earn forgiveness?" She wrote me a letter where she said she wasn't sorry for falling in love with Marcus. She tried to kill herself when people found out the truth, which tells me she's sorry she got caught, not sorry for what she did. And now she wants to apologize, probably, so she can feel better about herself. None of that is about making amends to me. It's all about her. "You're being so hard," my mother said, tears starting to fall. "So unforgiving." "Good," I said. "Maybe I should have been harder years ago. Maybe if I'd had better boundaries, better self-respect, I wouldn't have spent 7 years in a dead marriage trying to fix something that was broken from the start." "What do you want from us?" my father asked. "Do you want us to cut off Simone? To choose you over her? I want you to acknowledge what she did was wrong. Really wrong. Not just a mistake, not just poor judgment, but a profound betrayal that destroyed my marriage and my ability to trust anyone. I want you to stop making excuses for her. And I want you to stop asking me to forgive her just so you can be comfortable again." They looked at each other, having some silent conversation I wasn't privy to. "We love you both," my mother finally said. "We can't choose." "Then don't," I said. "Have a relationship with her. Support her through her therapy. Help her rebuild her life. But don't ask me to be part of it. Don't ask me to play happy family when she destroyed mine." What about holidays? My mother asked. What about Christmas? I'll make other plans. Naomi, please.
I'm sorry, Mom.
I really am. I know this is hard for you, but I have to protect myself. And that means keeping Simone out of my life, even if it means keeping some distance from you and Dad too. We sat in painful silence for a moment. The lawsuit, my father said. Will you at least consider dropping it? For us. If not for her. I thought about the alienation of affection lawsuit, about the public record it would create, about the message it would send. I'll think about it, I said, which wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. After they left, I sat in my garden and cried. Not for Marcus, not even for Simone, but for the family I'd lost, for the parents who loved me but would never fully take my side, for the future holidays that would be navigated with careful distance instead of warmth. But underneath the grief was something else. A growing sense of self-respect, of boundaries honored, of a line drawn and held. I was done being accommodating, done being understanding, done making myself small so other people could be comfortable. This was who I was now, and I was learning to be okay with that. 2 months after filing for divorce, Angela called with news. Marcus wants to settle. He's agreeing to all your terms. The house goes to you, your business is protected, he'll cover half the legal fees and move out permanently. No alimony requested on either side. What's the catch? He wants you to drop the alienation of affection lawsuit against Simone.
Of course he did.
What does Simone want? I asked. According to her lawyer, she wants the same. She'll accept full responsibility for the affair in a signed statement, agree to no contact with you, and she'll reimburse you for the cost of the private investigator. In exchange, you drop the lawsuit. I thought about it. The lawsuit had already served its purpose in many ways. It had made public what they'd tried to keep secret. It had put Simone's name in court documents attached to the word adultery. It had sent a message that there were consequences for betrayal. Taking it to trial would be expensive, time-consuming, and emotionally draining. And while I might win, I might also lose, and either way, it would keep me tied to this mess for months or years longer. I want something else, I said. I want them both to sign affidavits detailing the affair. When it started, how long it lasted, what they did. Full disclosure. Those affidavits become part of the public divorce record. Angela was quiet. That's vindictive.
No.
Vindictive would be posting their text messages on social media. Vindictive would be showing up at Simone's work with the surveillance photos. This is just making sure the truth is documented. If they want to be together, fine. But everyone gets to know how it started. I'll present the offer. 3 days later, Angela called back. They agreed. Both of them signed affidavits. They're detailed, Naomi. Very detailed. Good. Then I'll drop the lawsuit. The affidavits were exactly what I'd hoped for. Marcus detailed how the affair began at my rehearsal dinner, how it continued through the wedding weekend, how they'd maintained it for 7 years through careful planning and constant deception. He named every hotel, every lie he'd told me, every time he'd chosen Simone over his marriage. Simone's affidavit was even more damning. She described falling in love with Marcus before the wedding, knowing it was wrong but unable to stop herself. She detailed the guilt she felt, the times she almost confessed, the ways she'd rationalized the betrayal. Both affidavits became part of the public divorce record, available to anyone who wanted to look. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. I stood in the courtroom with Angela, Marcus, and his lawyer on the other side, and listened to the judge grant the dissolution of our marriage on grounds of adultery. The court finds that the marriage is irretrievably broken due to the husband's adultery with the plaintiff's sister, as documented in submitted affidavits. The court grants the plaintiff's petition for divorce and approves the settlement agreement as presented. It was over in less than 10 minutes. 7 years of marriage ended with a gavel strike. I walked out of the courtroom a divorced woman, and I felt lighter than I had in years. Marcus tried to talk to me in the hallway. Naomi,
We're done, I said.
We have nothing to say to each other. I hope someday you can. I won't. Have a nice life, Marcus. I walked away and didn't look back. That night, I had dinner with the few friends who'd stood by me through everything. Jessica was there, having chosen my side after all. My college roommate Emily had driven from Raleigh. Claire, my assistant, came too, having become more friend than employee over the past months. We toasted with wine and laughed and told stories, and for the first time in months, I felt something like happiness. You know what's crazy? Emily said, "You're more yourself now than I've seen you in years. Even before you found out about Marcus. It's like you've been slowly coming back to life." She was right. The Naomi who'd been married to Marcus had been a diminished version of herself, constantly trying to be enough, to fix things, to make a broken marriage work. She'd lost herself in the effort. This Naomi, the divorced, lawsuit-filing, boundary-setting Naomi, was stronger, more authentic, more whole. "What are you going to do now?"
Claire asked.
Besides rebuilding the business. I thought about it. The business was recovering slowly. Some clients had come back, apologizing for their initial reactions. New clients were calling, having heard about me through the very scandal that had driven others away. Apparently, some people respected a woman who fought back. But beyond the business, what did I want? "I want to travel," I said. "I've been planning other people's dream vacations for years. Maybe it's time I take one of my own." "Where?" Jessica asked. "I don't know. Somewhere I've never been. Somewhere that has nothing to do with weddings or marriage or happily ever after." "Italy," Emily suggested. "Go to Italy. Eat pasta, drink wine, look at art." "Japan," Claire said. "Cherry blossoms and temples and really good sushi." I smiled. "Maybe both. Maybe everywhere. I've got time now." And I did. For the first time in 7 years, my time was my own. No husband to accommodate, no marriage to try to fix, no sister to confide in who was secretly betraying me. Just me figuring out who I was and who I wanted to be. A week after the divorce was finalized, I got a package in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Simone. Inside was a photo album. Our photo album, the one Mom had made for us when we were kids. Photos of us as children, dressed in matching outfits, arms around each other. Photos from high school, from college, from all the moments that had made us sisters. And tucked inside, a note. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I wanted you to have these. They belong to you as much as they belong to me. We were sisters once, really truly sisters. I'm sorry I destroyed that. I'm sorry for everything. S." I looked through the album, at the little girls who had no idea what the future held, who couldn't imagine that one day, one of them would betray the other in the worst possible way. I felt sad looking at those photos. Not for what was lost between Simone and me, that was beyond repair, but for those little girls, for the innocence they'd had, for the belief that family meant something unbreakable. I put the album in a box in my closet, not to look at but not to throw away either. Evidence that we'd existed once, before everything fell apart. Then I went to my computer and booked a flight to Italy. 2 weeks, traveling alone, no itinerary beyond a list of museums I wanted to see and restaurants I wanted to try. It was time to start living for myself. Italy was exactly what I needed. 2 weeks of wandering through Rome and Florence and Venice, eating pasta I didn't have to share, drinking wine at sidewalk cafes while watching strangers live their lives, standing in front of art that had existed for centuries and would exist for centuries more. It gave me perspective. My problems, as devastating as they felt, were small in the grand scheme of things. People had survived worse. People had rebuilt from nothing. And I would too. I posted photos on Instagram, carefully curated images of the Colosseum at sunset, gelato in colorful cones, the bridges of Venice. Not to make anyone jealous, but because I wanted to document this moment of transformation, this trip where I was learning to be alone and discovering I actually liked my own company. The comments were mixed. "So glad you're taking care of yourself," from friends. "Must be nice to vacation while some of us are dealing with real problems," from someone I vaguely knew from the wedding industry. "Running away doesn't solve anything," from an anonymous account that was probably Simone. I didn't respond to any of them. I just kept posting, kept traveling, kept finding myself in the narrow streets of ancient cities. On my last night in Italy, I was having dinner at a small restaurant in Trastevere, a neighborhood in Rome known for its cobblestone streets and family-run trattorias. I was alone at my table, working through a plate of cacio e pepe and a glass of local wine, when a woman approached. Excuse me, she said in accented English. Are you Naomi? The event planner from Charlotte. I looked up, surprised. She was maybe 60, elegantly dressed, with silver hair and kind eyes. Yes, I said cautiously. I thought so. I recognized you from your Instagram.
In Elena Rossi.
My daughter got married 3 years ago, and you planned her wedding. Here in Italy, actually.
Villa Cimbrone in Ravello?
I remembered. It had been one of my favorite weddings, an American bride marrying her Italian fiancé, a 3-day celebration overlooking the Amalfi Coast. Of course, I said, smiling. How is she? Wonderful. Pregnant with her second child now. Elena gestured to the empty chair. May I? Please. She sat, ordered wine, and we talked about her daughter, about Italy, about life. Eventually, inevitably, the conversation turned to my divorce. I saw what happened, Elena said gently. The news travels in the wedding industry. I'm sorry you went through that. Thank you. My daughter told me something when she heard. She said you saved her wedding. Elena took a sip of wine. She was having doubts the week before, wondering if she was making a mistake. You sat with her for 2 hours in the garden of the villa, talking about marriage and love and what really matters. You told her that marriage is a choice you make every day, and if she wasn't sure she could make that choice every day for the rest of her life, it was okay to walk away. I vaguely remembered that conversation. The bride had been anxious, questioning everything. She went through with it, obviously, I said.
She did.
But because you gave her permission to be honest with herself, to really examine her feelings instead of just going through with it because of the money spent and the guests invited. She chose marriage with clear eyes, not because she felt trapped.
Elena smiled.
That's what good people do. They help others make authentic choices. I'm not sure everyone in Charlotte would agree I'm a good person right now. People who judge you for protecting yourself from betrayal aren't worth worrying about. Elena's voice was firm. My husband had an affair 20 years ago with my sister. I know exactly what you're going through. Your sister? My younger sister. They were together for 2 years before I found out. Family pressure convinced me to forgive her, to keep the peace.
So I did.
I pushed down my feelings, played nice at holidays, pretended everything was fine. She met my eyes. It nearly destroyed me. The person I became trying to maintain that false peace wasn't someone I recognized. What happened? Eventually, I drew boundaries. I told my family I would not attend events where my sister was present. I would not pretend we had a relationship. They could choose to accept that or not, but I would not compromise my mental health for their comfort. She smiled sadly. Some of them understood. Some didn't. But I survived. I rebuilt. And eventually I thrived. Are you still married? I asked.
No.
I divorced him 5 years after the affair ended. I'd stayed for the wrong reasons, trying to prove I could forgive, that I was strong enough to move past it. But you can't build intimacy on a foundation of betrayal. The trust was gone. And without trust, there's nothing. We talked for another hour. Elena told me about rebuilding her life in her 50s, about the travel business she started, about finding love again at 60 with a widower who treated her with respect and honesty. The best revenge, she said as we parted, is a life so full and joyful that your betrayers become irrelevant. Not because you've forgiven them, but because they no longer have the power to hurt you. I flew home from Italy, with those words echoing in my mind. When I got back to Charlotte, I threw myself into rebuilding graceful gatherings. I reached out to former clients who'd canceled, not to beg for their business back, but to thank them for their previous trust and wish them well. Some ignored me, but others responded, apologizing for their hasty judgments. I was wrong to cancel, one bride wrote. You didn't do anything wrong. I let gossip influence me, and I'm sorry. If you ever want to reschedule, I'd love to work with you, I replied. But if you found another planner, I wish you nothing but happiness. She rescheduled. So did 2 others. I also started doing something I'd never done before. I shared my story publicly. Not the salacious details, but the framework of it. I wrote a blog post titled When Family Betrays, Setting Boundaries and Rebuilding. I wrote about the importance of protecting yourself, even when it makes others uncomfortable. About how forgiveness isn't mandatory, and sometimes the healthiest choice is distance. about how you can love your family and still refuse to accept their treatment of you. The response was overwhelming. Women from all over the country reached out, sharing their own stories of family betrayal, of siblings who'd crossed unforgivable lines, of parents who'd asked them to minimize their pain for the sake of family unity. "Thank you for saying this," one message read. "I've been trying to maintain a relationship with the brother who assaulted me because my parents say family is forever. Your post made me realize I don't have to." Another. "My best friend slept with my husband. Everyone told me I was overreacting when I cut her off. Your story validated my decision." The messages kept coming. Hundreds of them. And while reading them was heartbreaking, it also reinforced something I'd been learning. Setting boundaries wasn't selfish. It was survival. 3 months after I returned from Italy, I got a call from a journalist at Charlotte magazine. "Ms. Clark, I'm writing a feature on women rebuilding after betrayal. I'd love to interview you about your experience and your business recovery." I hesitated. Going on record meant making everything even more public than it already was. But it also meant controlling the narrative. "What would the focus be?" I asked. "How you've rebuilt your business, your life, and your sense of self after a public betrayal. Not sensationalizing the affair, but highlighting your resilience." "Okay," I said. "Let's do it." The interview happened at my office. The journalist, a woman in her 40s named Miranda Chen, was professional and empathetic. She asked about the affair, yes, but she was more interested in what came after. "When did you decide to fight back instead of just accepting what happened?" she asked. "When I realized that staying silent was protecting them, not me. That by being quiet and dignified, I was allowing them to control the narrative. They got to be the tragic lovers while I was just the bitter ex-wife. I decided I'd rather be the woman who told the truth." "You've faced backlash for that choice." "I have. Some people think I should have handled this privately, that airing family business is tacky. But the alternative was letting Marcus and Simone rewrite history, letting them paint their affair as some grand love story, instead of the 7-year betrayal it actually was." "Do you regret the lawsuit against your sister?" I thought about it carefully. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that she made choices that forced me to take legal action. But do I regret protecting myself and seeking accountability?
No.
Your sister attempted suicide during the legal proceedings. Some people have criticized you for that. Simone's mental health struggles are real, and I'm sorry she's suffering. But her suicide attempt doesn't erase what she did. It doesn't make the betrayal disappear. And it doesn't mean I have to sacrifice my well-being to protect hers. Miranda nodded, making notes. "What would you say to other women facing similar betrayals? That your feelings are valid. That setting boundaries doesn't make you a bad person. That you don't owe forgiveness to anyone, especially not someone who's shown no genuine remorse. And that rebuilding is possible, but it requires being honest about what happened and who hurt you." The article came out 2 weeks later. It was fair, balanced, and portrayed me as I'd hoped, not as a victim or a villain, but as a woman who'd been wronged and chose to fight back with dignity and truth. The response from the Charlotte community was immediate. Clients started calling again. "I read the article. I was wrong to judge you. If you have availability, I'd love to work with you." Vendors reached out with apologies. "We should have supported you from the beginning." Other women shared their own stories, thanking me for speaking publicly. But the most unexpected response came from Marcus's former colleagues. A woman named Rachel Mendoza, who worked in sales at his pharmaceutical company, reached out via email. "Ms. Clark, I don't know if you'll read this, but I felt you should know. Marcus has been telling people at work that you fabricated evidence, that the affair was brief and meaningless, that you're exaggerating for attention. He's painting himself as the victim of a vindictive ex-wife. I have evidence that contradicts his story, and I think you should have it." We met for coffee the next day. Rachel was in her early 30s, professional and clearly uncomfortable with what she was about to share. "Marcus and I were work friends," she explained. "We'd grab lunch sometimes, talk about industry stuff. About 6 months before your divorce, he started confiding in me about his relationship with Simone. He said they'd been together for years, that he was planning to leave you once the timing was right." "He told you this directly?"
Yes.
"He also showed me text messages between them, talked about their future together, joked about how clueless you were." Rachel looked pained. "I'm ashamed to say I didn't tell you. I didn't know you and I thought it wasn't my place. But after reading your interview, I realized staying silent made me complicit. Do you have proof of these conversations? I kept some emails where Marcus mentioned Simone. And I have a witness, another colleague who heard him talking about the affair at a work happy hour. We'd be willing to provide statements if you need them. For what purpose? Marcus is trying to get custody of a joint investment property you own. His lawyer is claiming you were the unfaithful party, that his relationship with Simone only started after your marriage was already over. These statements would contradict that. I had known about the property dispute. Marcus and I had owned a small condo we'd rented out, and the divorce settlement had mandated we sell it and split the proceeds. Apparently, he was trying to claim it entirely. Thank you, I said to Rachel, for coming forward. I should have done it sooner. Angela was thrilled when I told her about Rachel's evidence. This is exactly what we need. If Marcus is lying to the court about the affair timeline, we can prove it. Not only will he lose the property dispute, but he could face sanctions for making false statements. We submitted Rachel's testimony and the supporting evidence. The property judge was not pleased. Mr. Clark, you stated under oath that your relationship with Ms. Simone Barrett began after the separation. These witness statements directly contradict that testimony. Would you like to revise your statement? Marcus's lawyer scrambled. Your Honor, my client was confused about the timeline. Confused or lying? The judge cut him off, because if it's the latter, we have a serious problem. In the end, Marcus withdrew his claim to the property. The condo sold, I got my half of the proceeds, and Marcus got a stern warning from the judge about the consequences of perjury. Word spread quickly through Charlotte's legal community. Marcus Clark had lied under oath and gotten caught. His credibility was shattered, and the narrative began to shift. People who'd defended Marcus, who'd said the affair was complicated and both sides shared blame, started to quietly change their tune. The evidence was too clear, the lies too obvious. At a wedding vendor meetup I attended, a florist who'd been coldly professional with me for months approached with an apology. I owed you the benefit of the doubt from the beginning, she said. I'm sorry I didn't give it to you. Similar apologies trickled in. Not from everyone. Some people were too invested in their original judgments to admit they'd been wrong. But enough to make a difference. My business was recovering. No, more than recovering. It was thriving. Brides specifically sought me out because of my story. I want someone who knows that happy endings aren't guaranteed, one said. Someone who understands that marriage is work, and sometimes the work isn't worth it. I attracted a different kind of client now. Women who valued authenticity over perfection, who wanted beautiful weddings, but weren't naive about the reality of marriage. It was better work, more meaningful work than I'd done before. 6 months after the Charlotte magazine article, my parents called. Naomi, we'd like to see you. Can we come over? They arrived on a Sunday afternoon, looking older and more tired than I remembered. We sat on my back porch, the same porch where I'd had coffee the morning after discovering the hotel receipts. We owe you an apology, my father said without preamble. I waited. We failed you, my mother continued, her voice thick with emotion. When you needed us to take a stand, to say clearly that what Simone did was wrong, we tried to stay neutral. We thought we were being fair, keeping the family together, but we were just being cowards. We asked you to forgive her before she'd even really apologized, my father added. We prioritized her fragility over your pain. That wasn't right. I felt tears prick my eyes but kept them at bay. What changed? We've been in therapy, my mother said. Family therapy and individual therapy. Our counselor helped us see how we'd enabled Simone's behavior, made excuses for her, protected her from consequences since she was young. And how we'd expected you to be the strong one, the responsible one, the one who'd sacrifice for family peace. That's not fair to you, my father said. It never was. Simone is still our daughter, my mother said carefully. We still love her. But we understand now that loving her doesn't mean accepting what she did or asking you to forgive her. We can support her healing without requiring you to participate in it. We're on your side, my father said firmly. We should have been from the beginning. The tears came then. Not from sadness, but from relief. From finally hearing what I needed to hear months ago. Thank you, I said. That means more than you know. We talked for hours. They told me about Simone, who was in intensive therapy and had moved to Asheville for a fresh start. Marcus had broken up with her 3 months ago, having apparently lost interest once the thrill of the forbidden was gone. She's devastated, my mother said. She lost her sister, her relationship, her reputation. Everything. I felt a flicker of sympathy, quickly suppressed. She made her choices. She did, my father agreed. And she's living with the consequences. As she should. Before they left, my mother hugged me tightly. I'm proud of you, she whispered, for standing up for yourself, for rebuilding, for not letting this destroy you. I'm proud of me too, I said, and I meant it. 8 months after my divorce was finalized, I attended a wedding I'd planned. It was a beautiful fall ceremony, the bride and groom exchanging vows under a canopy of golden leaves. During the reception, I found myself talking to the bride's aunt, a woman in her 70s with sharp eyes and a warm smile. You're the planner, she said, the one with the sister situation. I braced myself for judgment. I just wanted to tell you, she continued, that you handled that with more grace than most people could have mustered. My daughter went through something similar. Her husband left her for her best friend. She tried to be the bigger person, stayed quiet, didn't make waves. 5 years later, she's still angry, still bitter, still stuck. You got your anger out, you stood up for yourself, and now you're free. That takes courage. Thank you, I said, surprised. Too many women are taught that being gracious means being silent, she said. That setting boundaries is unfeminine. That protecting yourself is selfish. Good for you, for knowing better. As the wedding wound down and I supervised the final details, I thought about the journey I'd been on. From the woman who found hotel receipts and blamed herself, to the woman who filed lawsuits and set boundaries, to the woman I was now. Stronger. Clearer. Unafraid. I'd lost a marriage I'd thought was real. I'd lost a sister I'd thought I could trust. I'd lost the approval of people who valued peace over justice. But I'd gained something more valuable, myself. That night, driving home from the wedding, I got a text from an unknown number. Naomi, it's Simone. I know you blocked my old number. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I'm in therapy, working on myself, understanding why I did what I did. I know you'll probably never forgive me, and I accept that. But I needed to say that I'm genuinely sorry. Not for getting caught, not for the consequences, but for hurting you, for betraying you, for taking advantage of your trust.
You deserved better from me.
You deserved better from everyone. I hope you're happy now.
You deserve to be. S.
I read the message 3 times. It was different from her previous apologies. No justifications, no romantic framing of the affair, no requests for understanding or forgiveness. Just acknowledgement of what she'd done and what I deserved. It didn't fix anything. It didn't erase 7 years of betrayal or heal the wound of her treachery. But it was something. I didn't respond. I simply saved the message and continued driving home. Forgiveness, I'd learned, wasn't something you owed to people who hurt you. It wasn't a moral imperative or a sign of strength. It was a personal choice, made on your own timeline for your own reasons. And I wasn't ready to make that choice yet. Maybe I never would be. But I was okay with that. I pulled into my driveway, walked into my house, the house that was mine alone now, and poured myself a glass of wine. Tomorrow, I had 3 client meetings, a venue walkthrough, and a tasting with a new caterer. My calendar was full. My business was thriving. My life was my own. I sat on my back porch, sipping wine and watching fireflies appear in the twilight, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years.
Peace.
Not because everything was perfect, not because all wounds were healed, but because I'd survived the worst betrayal of my life and come out the other side intact. I'd set boundaries and honored them. I'd told my truth even when it was uncomfortable. I'd rebuilt from rubble. And I discovered that the woman I became in the fire was stronger than the woman who'd walked into it. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything. 18 months after my divorce was finalized, I stood in the ballroom of the Duke Mansion, the same venue where I'd gotten married 8 years ago, watching a bride dance with her father. It was the first wedding I'd planned at this location since my own, and I debated whether to take the booking. But my therapist, Dr. Patricia Williams, had encouraged me to reclaim spaces that held painful memories. You can't avoid every place that reminds you of Marcus, she'd said. Eventually, you need to create new associations, new memories that override the old ones. She was right. As I watched this bride, radiant and genuinely happy, surrounded by people who loved her, I felt no pain. Just satisfaction at a job well done. The bride's name was Aisha, and she was marrying her college sweetheart after a 6-year engagement. They'd waited, saved, built a life together before making it official. There was a maturity to their relationship that I recognized now but hadn't understood when I'd married Marcus. Real love, I'd learned, wasn't the breathless infatuation of early romance. It was the steady choice to show up, be honest, work through hard things together. It was respect and trust and compatibility built over years, not manufactured in a whirlwind courtship designed to hide red flags. Naomi, Claire, my assistant who is now my business partner, approached with a tablet. The caterer wants to confirm the dessert timing. Tell them we'll do it right after the father-daughter dance. And make sure the photographer is ready for the cake cutting. Claire nodded and hurried off. We'd expanded graceful gatherings over the past year, hired 2 more planners, taken on bigger weddings and corporate events. The business was thriving in ways I'd never imagined when I'd started it. Part of that success was my reputation for authenticity. Brides came to me because they knew I wouldn't sell them a fantasy. I'd help them create a beautiful wedding, but I'd also be honest about what marriage actually required. Your wedding day is one day, I tell them during consultations. It should be special, but it's not the marriage. The marriage is every day after, when the flowers have wilted and the dress is in storage, and you're just 2 people trying to build a life together. Make sure you're building with someone who's actually there, not the person you hope they'll become. Some brides found this perspective refreshing. Others found it cynical. But the ones who hired me appreciated the honesty. As the wedding wound down and guests started leaving, Aisha pulled me aside. "Thank you," she said, squeezing my hands. "Not just for today, but for the conversation we had during planning. When I was stressing about the flowers and the seating chart, you reminded me what really mattered. That conversation changed how I approached this whole process." "I'm glad," I said. "You and Jordan are going to be great together." "I can tell." "How can you tell?" "The way you talk to each other. The way you handle disagreements during planning. The way he showed up to every meeting, even the boring ones about napkin colors." Marriage isn't about the big romantic gestures. It's about showing up for the boring stuff. After the wedding, I drove home through Charlotte's quiet streets. It was past midnight, and the city had that peaceful stillness that only happens late at night. My phone buzzed with a text from someone I'd been seeing casually for the past 3 months. His name was Daniel Patterson, a professor of architecture at UNC Charlotte. We'd met at a gallery opening, struck up a conversation about the building's design, and ended up talking for 2 hours. "How was the wedding?" his text read. "Beautiful."
Exhausting.
"Perfect." "Want company?" "I could bring wine and listen to you decompress." I smiled. Daniel was good at that, at being present without being demanding. We'd taken things slowly, both of us coming out of complicated relationships and wary of rushing into anything. "Rain check." "I'm dead on my feet." "Of course." "Lunch tomorrow." "Sounds perfect." I pulled into my driveway and sat in the car for a moment, looking at my house. The same house I'd shared with Marcus, but it felt completely different now. I'd redecorated, changed the furniture, painted the walls in colors I actually liked instead of the neutral tones Marcus had preferred. It was mine now, fully, completely mine. Inside, I poured a glass of wine and sat on my back porch, a ritual I'd come to love. The garden was flourishing. I'd learned to tend it myself, finding peace in the simple act of nurturing growing things. My phone buzzed again. This time it was an email from a woman named Jennifer Mills. "Dear Naomi, I found your blog about family betrayal and boundary setting. My situation is different, but similar. My mother had an affair with my husband. I'm trying to navigate the aftermath, and everyone keeps telling me I need to forgive them both, that family is everything. Your words about how forgiveness isn't mandatory gave me permission to protect myself. I just wanted to say thank you. You saved my life, Jennifer." I'd gotten dozens of emails like this over the past year. Women who'd found my blog, my Charlotte magazine interview, my Instagram posts about rebuilding after betrayal. Women who needed permission to be angry, to set boundaries, to choose themselves. I'd started responding to them, offering support and resources. It had become an unexpected extension of my work, this informal network of women helping each other survive family betrayal. Dr. Williams had suggested I formalize it somehow, maybe start a support group or write a book. I was considering both. The next morning, I met Daniel for lunch at a cafe in Plaza Midwood. He was already there when I arrived, reading a book about brutalist architecture and drinking espresso. "Hey," he said, standing to kiss my cheek. "You look good. Rested." I slept for 10 hours. It was amazing. We ordered food and talked about his latest project, a paper he was writing about sustainable urban design. Daniel was passionate about his work in a way that reminded me of how I felt about event planning. We understood each other's drive, our need to create and build and make things beautiful. "Can I ask you something personal?" Daniel said after our food arrived.
Sure.
"Where do you see this going?" I appreciated his directness. "I don't know. Where do you want it to go?" "I like you. A lot. I like spending time with you. I like who I am when I'm with you." He paused. "But I also know you're still healing from your divorce. I don't want to push for something you're not ready for." "I like you too," I said honestly. "And I think I could fall in love with you, maybe. But you're right that I'm still healing. I'm still learning to trust again, to be vulnerable without being naive." "That's fair." Daniel reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm not in a hurry. I just wanted to know if we're on the same page."
We are.
"I think we are." He smiled.
Good.
"Then let's keep doing what we're doing. No pressure, no timeline, just seeing where this goes." It was exactly what I needed to hear. After Marcus, the idea of rushing into anything made my skin crawl. But this slow build with Daniel felt safe, healthy, real. After lunch, I went to my office to catch up on paperwork. Claire was there, working on a proposal for a corporate event. "Naomi, you have a visitor," she said carefully. "She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important." "Who is it?" Claire hesitated. "Your sister." My stomach dropped. "Simone is here?" "In the lobby." "I told her you might not want to see her, but she asked if I'd at least tell you she was here." I'd known this moment would come eventually. Charlotte wasn't that big, and we'd been carefully avoiding each other for almost 2 years. But avoidance couldn't last forever.
"Give me a minute," I said.
I went to the bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror, took several deep breaths. I didn't know Simone anything, not my time, not my forgiveness, not even my courtesy. I could have Claire tell her to leave, but I was also curious. What could she possibly have to say that hadn't already been said? "Send her back," I told Claire. Simone looked different. Older, thinner, with shorter hair and less makeup. She was dressed simply, in jeans and a sweater, nothing like the fashion-forward outfits she used to favor. "Naomi," she said quietly. "Thank you for seeing me. I have 10 minutes. What do you want?" She flinched at my tone, but didn't argue. I wanted to apologize. In person. To say things I should have said a long time ago. "You apologized by text." "I got it. I know. But it felt incomplete. Like I was hiding behind my phone instead of facing you." She took a breath. "Can I sit?" I gestured to the chair across from my desk. We sat in silence for a moment. "I've been in therapy for 18 months, Simone finally said. "Intensive therapy. Working through why I did what I did, understanding the patterns that made me capable of betraying you." "And what did you learn?" I kept my voice neutral. "That I've been selfish my whole life. That I always put my wants ahead of other people's needs, even people I loved. That I have a pattern of pursuing things I can't have because the chase feels exciting, and once I have them, I lose interest." She looked down at her hands. "Marcus broke up with me 4 months after you divorced him. Said the relationship wasn't fun anymore now that it wasn't a secret. And I realized he was right. I didn't love him. I loved the drama, the forbidden nature of it, the feeling of having something you wanted. That's supposed to make me feel better?
No.
It's supposed to explain, not excuse. There is no excuse." Simone met my eyes. "I destroyed our relationship, destroyed your marriage, caused you immeasurable pain, all for something that wasn't even real. And I can't ever make that right. No, you can't. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I'm here to take full responsibility, face to face, and to tell you that you didn't deserve any of what happened. You were a good sister. A good wife. The failure was mine, not yours. I felt tears prick my eyes, but blinked them back.
Why now?
Why after all this time? Because my therapist said I couldn't fully heal until I stopped avoiding the hardest conversation. And because Mom told me about your magazine interview, about how you've helped other women dealing with family betrayal. I read everything you've written, and I realized that while I was wallowing in self-pity about losing you, you were turning your pain into purpose. You were helping people. So I wanted you to know that I see you. I see what you've become, how you've grown, how you've built something meaningful from the wreckage I created. And I'm in awe of you. I didn't know what to say to that. I'm moving to Seattle, Simone continued. Fresh start.
New job.
Getting as far from Charlotte as I can while still being in the continental US. She smiled sadly. I won't contact you again unless you reach out first. I just needed to say all this in person. Needed you to see that I'm genuinely sorry, that I understand what I did, and that I don't expect anything from you. She stood up to leave. Simone, I said. She turned back. I hope therapy helps. I hope you figure out your patterns and break them. I hope you build a life in Seattle that's honest and healthy. Thank you. But I also need you to know that we're not going to be sisters again. Not in any meaningful way. I can wish you well without wanting you in my life. I understand. And the next time you're tempted to pursue something that belongs to someone else, I hope you remember what it cost. What it cost both of us. I will. Simone's voice was thick with tears. Every day for the rest of my life, I'll remember. After she left, I sat at my desk for a long time, processing the conversation. I didn't feel better exactly, but I felt complete. Like a door had finally closed that had been hanging open for too long. I called Dr. Williams. How do you feel? She asked after I described the meeting.
Sad. Relieved.
Angry still, but less intensely. Like I can finally stop bracing for the next encounter with her. That's closure. Real closure, not the Hollywood version where everyone hugs and reconciles. Just acceptance that it's over and you've both moved on. Is it wrong that I'm not going to forgive her? Forgiveness is personal. Some people need it to move forward. You don't. You've moved forward anyway by setting boundaries, by rebuilding, by helping others. That's just as valid. After the call, I looked at my calendar. I had a consultation with a new client in an hour, a bride who'd specifically asked for me after reading my blog. I pulled up the blog post I'd written 6 months ago, titled, "You Don't Owe Anyone Forgiveness." It had gone viral in survivor communities, shared thousands of times. Women commented with their own stories, thanking me for giving them permission to prioritize their healing over other people's comfort. The bride arrived right on time. Her name was Melissa, and she was in her early 30s, planning a small destination wedding. I wanted to work with you specifically, she said, because of your honesty about marriage. My fiancé and I have been together for 8 years. We've been through hard things together, financial stress, family drama, health scares. We know we can weather storms together. I don't need you to sell me a fairy tale. I need you to help me throw a great party celebrating a real relationship. I can definitely do that, I said, smiling. We spent 2 hours planning, and by the end, I had a clear vision of what she wanted. Nothing over the top, nothing performative, just a beautiful celebration of a strong partnership. After she left, Claire poked her head into my office. Daniel called. He said he left his book here at lunch and asked if he could pick it up tonight. I told him probably yes, but I'd check with you. That's fine. Tell him to come by around 7. That evening, I was home working in my garden when Daniel arrived. He was carrying takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant. I brought food, he said. Figured you probably hadn't eaten. You figured right. We sat on the back porch, eating pad thai, and talking about our days. I told him about Simone's visit. How do you feel about it? He asked. Weird.
Sut.
But also free? Like I've been carrying this weight of unfinished business, and now it's done. She apologized, I acknowledged it, we both moved on. Are you going to tell your parents? Probably. They've been hoping we'd reconcile. They need to understand that's not going to happen. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something? Of course. I was engaged before, 3 years ago. Called it off 2 months before the wedding. What happened? I realized I didn't actually want to marry her. I wanted to want to marry her. She was perfect on paper, smart, beautiful, from a good family. But there was no real connection. I was going through the motions because it seemed like what I should do. That must have been hard.
It was.
People were angry. My parents, her parents, mutual friends. I was the bad guy for breaking her heart, but staying would have been worse. We both deserved better than a marriage built on should. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to know I understand what it's like to make the hard choice even when everyone thinks you're wrong. And I want you to know that what we have, this thing between us, it's not based on should. It's real. At least for me. I looked at him, this kind man who'd been patient with my healing, who'd given me space when I needed it and shown up when I asked. It's real for me too, I said. He smiled and kissed me, gentle and sweet, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years.
Hope.
For a future that wasn't defined by past betrayals, but by new possibilities. 3 months later, I stood in front of a room full of women at a domestic violence center in Charlotte. I'd been invited to speak about family betrayal and boundary setting, part of their monthly workshop series. My name is Naomi Clark, I began. And 6 years ago, I found out my husband had been having an affair with my sister since our wedding day. I told him my story. Not all of it, but the framework. The discovery, the betrayal, the decision to fight back, the social backlash, the rebuilding. The hardest part, I said, wasn't the betrayal itself. It was everyone telling me how I should respond to it. Forgive and move on. Don't air family business. Be the bigger person. As if setting boundaries and demanding accountability made me small. Heads nodded around the room. I want you to know that if someone betrays you, you don't owe them forgiveness. You don't owe them a relationship. You don't owe them your continued pain for the sake of family peace. You owe yourself protection, respect, and the right to build a life free from people who hurt you. After the talk, several women approached me with their own stories. A woman whose mother had stolen her identity. Another whose brother had assaulted her, and the family wanted her to forget about it. A third whose best friend had drugged and robbed her. I listened to each of them, offered resources, shared what had helped me. One woman, probably in her 50s, squeezed my hand. Thank you for saying we don't have to forgive. I've been carrying so much guilt about not being able to forgive my father for what he did. Everyone says I need to let it go. But I can't. And I felt like that made me a bad person. It doesn't, I said firmly. It makes you a person with boundaries. That's healthy. Driving home that night, I thought about the journey I'd been on. From the woman who blamed herself for her husband's emotional distance, to the woman who fought back against betrayal, to the woman who is now helping others do the same. I'd lost so much. A marriage, a sister, some friends, the illusion of a perfect family. But I'd gained more than I'd lost. Self-respect, authentic relationships, meaningful work, the ability to help others heal.
My phone rang.
It was my mother.
Mom.
Naomi, I just wanted to let you know that Simone left for Seattle today. She called to say goodbye. Okay. She told me about your conversation. She said you were kind, but clear. I was honest. That's not always the same as kind. She also said she doesn't expect a relationship with you. That she understands. My mother's voice wavered. I know I can't have both my daughters in the same room. But can I still have both of you in my life? Separately. Of course, Mom. I'm not asking you to choose. But I have chosen.
I want you to know that.
What Simone did was unforgivable, even if she's working on herself now. You're the one who was wronged. You're the one I should have defended from the beginning. Thank you for saying that. Your father and I are so proud of you. The business, the speaking, the way you've turned your pain into helping others. You're amazing, Naomi. I felt tears well up. I love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetie. After we hung up, I sat in my driveway for a moment, feeling grateful. For parents who'd finally understood, for a business that was thriving, for Daniel who was patient and honest, for the women I was helping who helped me in return. 1 year later, I stood at a different kind of event. Not a wedding, but a celebration. Graceful Gatherings was celebrating its 10th anniversary, and we'd rented a rooftop venue in uptown Charlotte. Clients, vendors, friends, and family filled the space. There was champagne and hors d'oeuvres, music and laughter. Claire gave a toast. 10 years ago, Naomi started this business with a vision of creating authentic celebrations. She's done that and more. But what makes her special isn't just her talent for planning beautiful events. It's her commitment to truth, to helping people create celebrations that reflect real relationships, not fantasies. Here's to 10 more years. Everyone raised their glasses. Daniel, who is now my boyfriend of over a year, squeezed my hand. "Proud of you," he whispered. My parents were there, beaming. My father pulled me aside. "Your mother and I were talking. We want to invest in your business, help you expand, maybe open a second location. We believe in what you're doing." "Dad, that's incredibly generous. You've earned it. You've built something real here. And we want to support it." As the party wound down, I found myself on the rooftop edge, looking out over Charlotte. The city lights twinkled below, and I could see the Duke Mansion in the distance, where my journey had really begun all those years ago. I thought about the woman I'd been then. Young, naive, so desperate to be loved that she'd ignored every warning sign. The woman who'd blamed herself for her husband's affair, who'd made herself smaller trying to fix something that had been broken from the start. That woman was gone. In her place was someone stronger, clearer, more authentic. Someone who knew her worth and wouldn't compromise it for anyone. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Hi Naomi, my name is Andrea. I read your blog about family betrayal. My sister is sleeping with my husband. I just found out. I don't know what to do. Can you help?" I looked at the message for a long moment. Then I typed back. "Yes, I can help. Call me tomorrow and we'll talk. You're not alone, and this isn't your fault. You're going to get through this." I hit send and smiled. This was my life now. Not perfect, but real. Not painless, but meaningful. Not the fairy tale I'd once wanted, but something better. A life built on truth, boundaries, and the courage to choose myself. And that was more than enough. 2 years later, the book launch party was packed. Reclaiming Yourself, a guide to healing after family betrayal, had been published by a major press and was already getting strong reviews. I stood at a podium in a bookstore in Charlotte, looking out at the crowd. Friends, clients, strangers who'd read my blog, women I'd helped through their own betrayals. When I found those hotel receipts 7 years ago, I said, I thought my life was over. My marriage was a lie. My sister had betrayed me, and I didn't know who I was anymore. But I was wrong. My life wasn't over. It was beginning. I talked about the journey, the lessons learned, the importance of boundaries and self-respect. The people who hurt you will often tell you that your healing depends on forgiving them. It doesn't. Your healing depends on you honoring your own feelings, protecting yourself, and building a life that reflects your values. Forgiveness is optional. Self-respect is not. After the talk, I signed books for 2 hours. Women cried, shared their stories, thanked me for giving them permission to be angry, to set boundaries, to choose themselves. One woman, probably my age, whispered, "My best friend is sleeping with my fiancé. Everyone says I should talk it out with them, hear their side. But I don't want to. Your book made me realize that's okay." "It is okay," I told her. "You don't owe them an audience for their excuses." Daniel was waiting when I finished, holding a bouquet of flowers. Ready to celebrate best-selling author? Almost. I looked around the bookstore at all the women holding copies of my book, at the visible relief on their faces from knowing they weren't alone. This was what I'd built from the ashes of betrayal. Not just a successful business, not just a healthy relationship, but a community of women helping each other heal and set boundaries and reclaim themselves. "Now I'm ready," I said, taking Daniel's hand. We walked out into the Charlotte evening, and I felt nothing but gratitude. For the pain that had forced me to grow, for the betrayal that had taught me my worth, for the journey that had led me here. I was whole. I was strong. I was free. And I was exactly where I was supposed to be. If you've connected with this story, I'd love it if you could hit that like button and leave a comment sharing where you're watching from. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss future stories. And if you or someone you know is dealing with family betrayal, remember, you don't owe anyone forgiveness. You owe yourself respect, boundaries, and the freedom to build a life on your own terms. Thank you for listening.